Divorce is never easy, and it's even harder when your spouse is a narcissist or another difficult type of personality. But then when you add kids, the process gets even more intimidating for many. So how do you protect your children's emotional well-being while balancing the challenges of co-parenting and a divorce from a difficult person? My name's board-certified divorce lawyer Christopher Bruce, and through this video, I'll teach you exactly how to do this. Throughout this video, I'll take you through strategies designed to minimize the conflict and to increase the stability of your child when going through a divorce, even if it's going to be a difficult divorce. The goal here is to allow you to navigate this difficult time in your life with your children with confidence and care. So let's get started. So it's important to be practical when taking into account the way divorce affects children. While divorce can be inherently stressful for kids, it does not have to be traumatic, and in many situations, the fact that you're getting divorced will allow your child to be better off than if you stayed married. This is counterintuitive to some, but when you read the psychological studies, it actually comes out that in a toxic household, the children of divorced parents, even if those parents do not get along, are going to be more capable, more equipped to have healthy adult relationships than those kids whose parents end up staying together but in a toxic relationship. So, while it may sound counterintuitive, if you do not have a healthy relationship with your spouse and children are in the house, most of the research suggests your kids are going to be better off if you do end up separating from your spouse. So while a divorce with children is probably not what you were looking for when you entered into the marriage, the reality you have to realize is you have two decisions, none of which are ideal, but you have to make the best decision in your circumstances. And those two choices that you have are stay married and have the kids continue to grow up in a household to where the parents are not in a healthy relationship, and choice two is to end your marriage and do what research suggests gives your kids, based on the marriage you're in, the best chance of growing up to be healthy, happy adults. So as you're going through the divorce process, you have to be very deliberate about minimizing the conflict over children in the actual divorce case. So this probably all sounds obvious, but do make sure that you routinely take a step back during your divorce case, talk to your lawyer about making sure you're not fighting over things related to children that are just not worth the effort. A lot of things people fight about is the actual custody schedule. Some parents are intent on having more time with the kids than their spouse. But the reality in some states, including Florida where I practice, is the courts typically want to leave kids in an equal custody arrangement. So before going and pursuing a long knockout, drag-out custody lawsuit, really stop and think, are you really going to get that much more time with your kids? Is the fight likely to be worth it? If your kids are 15, 16, is it going to benefit them tremendously by you extending the divorce case possibly another year to try to get more than 50% of the time with them? Probably not. Now look, every case is different. You have to talk to your attorney and do what's best for your family, but I see as an attorney far too many people fighting over children's issues that never should have gotten to court in the first place, and I think about how those kids are going to be affected by their parents going through that fight. And if you're one of those people to where you're not worried about the fight, think about the money the fight costs. You probably could pay for their college education through what it costs to pay a really good divorce lawyer to go through a long, drawn-out child custody trial. So that was a lot to do with legal, but let's talk practical here. One of the best ways to most benefit your children going through a difficult divorce is to try your best to create stability in each of their homes. Even if your spouse is the husband from hell, try your best to establish consistent rules, consistent expectations, and consistent routines for the children in both households. Doing so creates in children a sense of security, which makes them less anxious and enables them to better process the change that divorce brings. Sadly, we don't live in a perfect world. And if your spouse isn't the type of person to cooperate to promote this consistency, control what you can control. Make things consistent when your children are with you, and at the very least, do the best to try to make it easy for them to go in between households. This might at times mean that you need to have an extra set of a couple different things. It probably shouldn't be like, but you have to deal with the reality of who the other parent is and choose your battles. So let's talk a little bit about the typical emotional challenges that children display when their parents are getting divorced. The big three are conflict of loyalties, reconciliation fantasies, and fear of abandonment. So with conflict of loyalties, this is when kids feel torn between two parents. Most all children have deep love and affection for both parents, especially when they're younger. So it's only natural for them to feel conflicted about things. As an example, your 7-year-old might be afraid to tell you about the great time they had with their dad in the past weekend out of fear that you'll think they're not on your side. So what's the best way for you to deal with this? By proactive communication. Make it clear to your children through your discussions that it's okay to have a great time with their other parent. Reconciliation fantasies. This is when children fantasize about their parents getting back together. And this isn't helped by the Hollywood movies made around these concepts. A lot of the experts will have you make clear to your children at the start of the divorce process, preferably jointly, that the marriage is over, that the family's going to be apart. It's not something that may be happening, and both parents should ideally be on the same page with this and not try to say anything to the children that would seem to indicate that the marriage is going to come back. It can be confusing for both young children and old children alike. This might not seem rational, but a lot of children fear that they're going to be abandoned in the divorce process. They see their household dividing apart. Mommy and daddy aren't in love anymore. What's going to happen to them? Kids are inherently selfish, especially at an early age, and they're going to be worried that they're going to be left behind. So how do you deal with this? Again, proactive communication, in this case to your children, about the fact that while mommy and daddy may be living in separate households, they are not going to be married anymore. The one thing that's not going to change is their love for you. If this isn't getting through to your kids, or you sense that they're nervous or on edge, this is a great time to get a professional therapist involved. Find somebody that limits what they do to working with children, and sometimes this can help the kids get better through the divorce process. And as you're processing this whole divorce thing, remember to watch your words. What you say matters to children, especially when it's about the other parent. Ideally, you want your kids to feel like they're both in a safe space with you and a safe space when they're with the other parent. You want them developing healthy attachments to each of you, and also feeling comfortable expressing while in your home their affections for your former spouse. With this being the case, you have to try at all costs to avoid saying negative things about the other parent to your children. While your comments might be justified, just don't do it. The words matter. And there are just a lot of things that when they come out during the emotions of divorce can never be unsaid with your children. So let's talk about co-parenting for a moment, including when it's just not possible. So in the world of divorce, the big concept is you should co-parent with the other parent. That means you cooperate with the other parent when it comes to issues of raising your kids after the divorce. Developing that consistent routine, those consistent expectations in both households, that's what we're talking about here. Also, it means trying to be on the same page with your former spouse when it comes to anything about your kids. But it's important to realize, especially when you're divorcing a difficult person, that you can only control what you can control. It might be the case that you can't get your spouse to co-parent, or for you to co-parent with them would be to compromise parental decision making. Sometimes you just can't do that, or your spouse never can cooperate, and you have to accept that as a fact of life. So what do you do in those situations? Well, I've got one practical tip and then something that might make you feel better. Practically, when your spouse just won't be reasonable, can't co-parent, all you can do is the best you can. Sometimes they call this parallel parenting. You're going to do what you do over here, and your spouse is going to do what they do over there. And, at the very least, your kids will benefit from the way that you are properly parenting during your time. Usually it's not worth losing sleep over what is going on at the other household. Unless it gets really, really bad, then you can sometimes look to the courts to correct the situation. But I want to tell you something that might make you feel better here. A lot of the research into children, including children of divorce, indicates that children can grow up to be happy, healthy, well-functioning adults if they have a secure attachment 30% of the time with one parent. So, Even if your kids are not having the ideal situation when they're with your spouse after the divorce, as long as you're devoting about 30% of the time when they're with you to good, quality attention and bonding, your kids are going to be fine. At least that's what the experts say. What's really important is realizing your role in shaping your kid's life after the divorce. Don't be prone to feeling like your decision to end an unhealthy marriage is going to hurt your kids. Remember that it's probably going to make their life better. Further, even if your spouse is a very difficult person, somebody who's never going to cooperate with the children, understand you do control a lot. Your actions, your tone, your approach to your children during and after the divorce process is going to have a tremendous impact not only on how your kids rebound from the divorce, but how they develop as healthy adults. If your marriage is toxic, odds are the best thing you can do for your children is ending that marriage. That allows them to have a chance at growing up happy, at growing up healthy. And you direct your actions towards co-parenting as much as possible, promoting stability, and minimizing conflict with your former spouse. You're going to give your kids the best opportunity they can to thrive. Look, some of this is easier said than done, and you're doing yourself a great service by taking the time to think about this stuff as you approach divorce from a difficult person. Check out the description below. We have links on a lot of divorce-related resources, including with children. It's usually a great idea as you're getting closer to the divorce process to develop a relationship with an attorney, to talk to several attorneys. My law firm would welcome a conversation with you if you're looking at a divorce in the South Florida area. My partners and I represent clients from Vero Beach south to Miami. So if you might have a divorce in Florida or just want to talk through your situation, please get in touch. Our information is in the description. I hope you find this helpful. Please let me know in the comments what you think, and if you have any questions, we'll do our best to respond.